asked you guys to be brave and send me videos of yourselves speaking English for me to take a look at. We're going to be taking a look at 3 of them to identify what is going to help you sound most natural in American English pronunciation. For each video, I'm going to show you some things that I think are working very well, and also a couple things that I would suggest if the goal is to sound maybe a little bit more natural in American English. Let's begin with our first video.
Jeff, hello everyone. My name's Ali from Syria and I'm 28 years old. I work as a teacher. I'm very fond of sport, like soccer, basketball, and tennis.
So one concept I've mentioned in a previous video is that when people are listening to you in English, they're looking for variations. Times where you speed up, times where you slow down, times where you speak louder, times where you speak quieter. These are all aspects of contrast, and this is really important in terms of maintaining interest and getting people to pay more attention to what you're saying. Otherwise, you risk sounding like a robot. So one thing that we can do is try to mix things up, whether it's intonation patterns, adding more stresses, adding more pauses, adding fewer pauses. These are all ways that you can mix up your speech, add more variation and contrast. For this part here,
my name's Ali from Syria and I'm 28 years old. I work as a teacher.
Notice that we're falling into some repeated patterns. Specifically, pay attention to these words. Ali, Syria, old, teacher. Notice that all of these are using this rising intonation pattern, and that's just making it sound a little bit too expected. Nothing's going to stand out. So one thing I would suggest is, again, mixing up some of those intonation patterns. Maybe saying, for instance, I'm Ali. I'm 28 years old, I'm a teacher, and I'm from Syria. So again, that just kind of balances it more. So now you have 2 falling intonations in there and also 2 risings. Another concept that we mentioned a lot in our videos is the concept of stress. And I get it, English is stress times. You want to make sure that the words you're stressing are being emphasized, but you can also have the opposite effect by overstressing the word. See if you can identify a word here that could be overstressed.
I'm very fond of sport.
I would have maybe reduced sport just a little bit. I'm very fond of sports. I'm very fond of sports. One way that you can kind of regulate yourself so that way you're not overstressing, you want to think of stress kind of like a staircase with your pitches. You don't want to go too high. So like if I say of sport, that's a step that is reasonable. I can get from here to here and it's not too noticeable. But if I do something like of sport, that jump suddenly is a lot higher and that's going to make it stand out more. Now this can be helpful if you're exaggerating or if you really want to emphasize something, but in most situations you don't need to add that much emphasis to your stressed words. One element that I really like here though is the use of intonation for a list.
Like soccer, basketball, and tennis.
Can you hear it there? Soccer, basketball, and tennis. This is the most common pattern for lists in English, where you're going to use a rise, and whatever your last item is, you're going to fall. Just a note that sometimes people may use falling intonation for all of them, so it's just an alternative like soccer, basketball, and tennis. How about our next one?
Hello, my name is Virginie. I'm from Italy, precisely from Piedmont, and I'm here to trying to improve my English because I'd like to help foreigners who want to buy and renovate in Italy, and I don't want misunderstanding when we talk together.
I think people who learn English tend to have shorter thought groups, which means that you have more stresses in your sentences. And again, if you're not sure about stresses and thought groups, that's what this video is for here. Listen again, for instance, to this sentence.
Like to help foreigners who want to buy and renovate in Italy.
I'd like to help foreigners who want to buy and renovate in Italy. Lots of thought groups there, which means we have to add lots of stresses. If I were going to read this sentence, I personally would have said it like this. I'd like to help foreigners who want to buy and renovate in Italy. And again, that's just going to help your sentence to flow a little bit more naturally because, again, you're not going to have as many stresses, not as many words are going to stand out, and it's going to help your listener focus their attention more on what you're saying. Before we move on, guys, just really quick, if you're learning something new, let me know by liking or subscribing. How about this sentence here?
And I don't want misunderstanding when we talk together.
I don't want misunderstandings when we talk together. Now again, in terms of how this sentence sounds, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it, easily understandable. Something that could help it sound even more natural though is cutting down on some of the stresses. For instance, if we only wanted to stress one word in this sentence, how could that sound? Well, here's one option. I don't want misunderstandings when we talk together. Here's another option. I don't want misunderstandings when we talk together. Or even if you wanted it on talk. I don't want misunderstandings when we talk together. One thing that I think is really well done here is the use of rising intonation. Rising intonation is a technique that lets the listener know that you're not done talking, that you have more information to add. For instance, here.
Hello, my name is Virginie. I'm from Italy.
My name is Virginie. I'm from Italy. I think it's very common to have those sorts of rising intonations at the ends of those short sentences. Our last one for today is Roger.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Roger. I'm from Brazil. I'm 51 years old. I decided to study English about 2.5 years ago alone. It would be great to have your feedback if it's possible. Thank you.
So another concept that we've talked about a lot is placement. Remember that placement in English. You want to project from low in your throat. You want it to be very relaxed and open. Lots of air. This is important for vowels, but it's also important for consonants too. For instance, the R sounder, You want to make sure that's coming from a low point. If it's too high, you may get something like or something like that. Pay attention to how he says this word, Roger, Roger.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Roger.
So again, I do think the placement could be just a little bit more relaxed there. Roger, Another area where I think the placement may be just a little bit too high is in the O sound. For instance, like in old. Can you hear that again? Really low, relaxed, lots of air. Old. Compare that to the original.
51 years old.
On the other hand, I think there's lots of vowel sounds here that are pronounced great. So for instance, Brazil. This is actually a word that Portuguese speakers, ironically, tend to have some trouble with, saying a lot like Brazil or like things like that.
I'm from Brazil.
One last thing that I think sounded really natural was the use of thought groups in stress in this last sentence.
It would be great to have your feedback if it's possible. Thank you.
I think it would be great, pause, to have your feedback, pause, if possible. Now, you don't need to go identifying the thought groups in every sentence that you say. It can just be something that's helpful to kind of regulate yourself, because in every thought group, there's going to be one major word that receives stress. Stress, thought groups, what are all of these complicated terms? Take a look at this playlist for more information.